And good evening, everybody. Welcome to a brand new season of Beyond the Ordinary Show, season 24. And some of y'all have been following us for 24 seasons. Amazing. Thank you so much for your support, your energy, and what you contribute to this platform, and just how beautifully we've been able to grow through all those seasons together. I've certainly changed, and the testimonials that I get in and the community response and how we've all grown together is so evident. And I'll say we're all maturing into a new way of being, of recognizing ourselves, of having an intimacy with the world around us that perhaps we weren't awake to or didn't have the perspective to. And today's guest, he's such a gift in not only the information that he shares, but how he shares it and how he humbly works and has intimacy into the embodiment of the practice. So I would just want to invite you to sit back in and listen today and be in receiving mode and absorb as much as you can of this beautiful wisdom and energy that's going to be transmitted through Paul Selig. Paul, you don't say this in front of your children, but sometimes you just have to. Not that you're my child, but Paul's truly one of my favorite channels. And the way it comes through, and I'll explain why in a second in one of my questions. But listen and attune. And the first time I heard Paul, you'll find the way he double talks and repeats and the way that he channels. And it took me a little bit to adjust to it. But once I adjusted, the waves of recognition, remembering, and expansion that came through were extraordinary, really second to none. And it's such resonance, such truth. It's one of those things that you just can't poke holes into no matter how much you try. And so again, it's gonna be a phenomenal call. We may open up to Q&A. We'll see how we go today. I wanna make sure that we receive the full transmission. But again, y'all sit back, relax. We'll get into Paul's special offer in a little bit also. For those of y'all who aren't familiar, even though I've gone on for a while, let me tell you a little bit more about him. So Paul considers himself a radio, and one that's attuned to the frequencies that are in consonance with the divine. A spiritual awakening in 1987 left the young New York University instructor who had recently earned a master's degree from Yale with the ability to see the change in lights or auric field around people. Now, Paul also became clairaudient, having the voice of guides who were always with him, offering spiritual truths. The guides speak in a flow of channeled information, and Paul's 8 books, the latest, which is Alchemy, a channeled text, St. Martin's Essentials 2020 is the publisher, spring directly from the guides who shared teachings from spiritual evolution that align with inner knowing. Paul's an award-winning medium and intuitive, and he teaches workshops all over the world. He started Esalen. He's been featured in the news. He's been featured in major publications, and of course on Beyond the Ordinary. And it's with that introduction, Paul, I want to welcome you back to season 24, and thank you for kicking it off. I can't think of a better way to do so.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Now, Paul, one question that I've been dying to ask you, because as I've been reading the books that you've published, and the way that you published is magnificent. I don't have to get into that story, but I found interesting, not this last book, but the book before. What's the name of it?
Realization.
Realization. I had the book Realization, and I was reading through the chapters, but I found I had to keep going back 2 pages. I had to keep going back to absorb the information over and over and over again. And it probably took me a good 4 months to get through the book. Why is that? Why can some people just breeze through it, and then there seems like some type of assimilation of transmission happening?
Well, I mean, the books are all energetic transmissions that work with the reader, you know, and I don't write the books are all spoken. The last number of books were all spoken live in front of audiences. And then, you know, the videotape or the recording is sent to the transcriptionist, and then without any editing, it becomes the book. So the transmissions differ book to book. I always say, well, they're not page turners. These aren't beach books. You know, it's not like you're going to wait and find out who done it at the end. But the language, the guides say, is encoded with vibration. And so the guides say these are books that are experienced as much as read. They say the books work on 2 levels. They're the words that are on the page, which provide an intellectual context for the reader. And then the real book is the energetic transmission. So I don't know why that's the case for you. And for some, I've heard people say, I couldn't read the book. I put it down, I threw it across the room, and I picked it up 6 months later, and I understood every word, and I plowed through it. It made perfect sense. I dictated the 9th book of the series a few months ago here on Maui, and before a small group that, had to meet on Zoom because I wasn't doing live events. And the book was sent to the publishers without my even having read it this time, because I couldn't wrap my brain around it. I mean, I was so overwhelmed by just probably just the copious amount of language, it was just so much teaching that comes back to me typeset, from the editor, and I can go, okay, I can really experience the book. The transcriptionist was wonderful, did the initial round of proofing. So I have the same experience that you had. Sometimes I can't even want to look at it. Sometimes I go, it's hard enough that I'm having to speak it all, let alone going back and revisit it. And I'm always impressed when people, say I've read all the books, and, I love them, and I'm grateful that people are having that experience, although I'm not the author. But you're not alone in your experience. In 2 pages and put the book down.
Well, and I found myself wanting to have an intimacy with the awareness of what was being brought through. So mentally I could grasp it, but there was something deeper that I felt I was attuning to and being in relationship with.
Yeah.
And for that felt so rich and so satisfying in so many ways.
No, I'm glad.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So with your latest work and what you keep attuning to and receiving from the guides, it seems like collectively we're learning how to be in a different way, how to create, how to manifest in the world in the ways that we haven't before. And what's your awareness of how that's shifting and how our mind, body, and spirits catching up to like a new wave of creation?
I don't know how to describe it really. I don't read other channeled work. I've read half of a Seth book, I think, maybe 3/4. Most of that was when I was 25 and didn't believe in any of this stuff. But I don't keep up. And the reason is I don't want to compare myself, and I try to keep the channel clean, People sometimes say, so-and-so is saying this, what do your guides say? And I'll say, I don't know how to answer that. I don't even know, and I don't know that they know either. But what the guides have talked about for some time is, how we tend to look at manifestation. I may not say this correctly. Sometimes when I don't, they'll interrupt me and they'll say it differently. But the guides have said, there's nothing wrong with the house on the hill. Somebody gets to live there, but why do you want it? And if you want the house on the hill to be the envy of your neighbors, you're creating in fear. And much of what we think we want is what we think we're supposed to have to be the people we think we're supposed to be. And if you look at, how we are all saying, well, where's the better job or the better lover or the better, house, what do you name it? All that stuff. So everything I understand can be experienced. If it exists, you can learn from it, and you can move into vibrational accord to it. But the guides say, and this is what they teach about manifestation, that you're in vibrational accord with everything you see. It's not a shopping list that God's supposed to supply. They say it's kind of an adolescent way of approaching spirit. There's nothing wrong with experiencing anything, but that's not the point. But they say, this is the symbol they use for a chord. And they say, everything you see and can agree to individually and collectively, you are in vibrational accord to. Because the guides say everything is operating in an octave of tone, of a schemata of sound and vibration. And the octave that we know of as a collective reality, we're in vibrational accord to. They're teaching how to move beyond that to what they call the upper room. And they say the upper room is the octave above. It's another state of resonance. And it's from this place that you move into an awareness of the inherent divine that is in and is as all things, all manifestation, because they say everything is of God or source, except, they say, our only problem, humanity, they say, is our denial of the inherent divine. So when you move to this place where you're not denying it, you can become the recipient of it. So they're lately speaking about manifestation as moving into a constant state of receptivity to what one truly needs, not what one thinks he should have or she should have, you know. And I'm trusting this now, I have to say, and I'm not somebody who did. I was somebody who for many, many years was saying, where is it? Where's my partner? Where's my, you know, all that stuff. And why aren't I manifesting? Well, what I didn't get was I was always manifesting. I was manifesting the things I said I didn't want because that's what I could move into accord with. And I had a lot of questions about manifestation from the guides a few books ago when they started teaching this. And they said, you're in accord with everything you see. I said, okay, does that mean if there's a book on a table in Paris, I'm in accord with the book on the table in Paris? And they said, the moment you know of the book on the table in Paris, yes, because the consciousness that you hold is informing the book. And everything that is in matter, everything that is in form, is impacted through consciousness or by consciousness. And because we tend to be operating sort of at this lower level of, I should have what I want and the world should give me what I think should be mine, or we're confirming the identities that we've operated as, which could be, I'm the one who doesn't get what he wants or isn't good enough or is too good or whatever those things are. We're always sort of operating through those claims. When you lift to the higher, they call that the true self or the divine self. And that's the aspect of us that actually knows. It doesn't discount the personality or the ego. That's a part of who we are. But they say when you move to the true self knows and the small self thinks. And when you move to your knowing, you begin to claim in a very different way. So it's more this idea that your needs are met without asking, that you're not telling spirit what should be, because that would be the personality self who thinks it knows more. That means there's nothing wrong with, I'm allowed to have a place to live that I feel good in, or, you know, relationships that are supportive. You know, I think those things can be included. But I also think we come to learn different things at different times. I mean, when I was 25 and I stopped drinking, and I was a year out of Yale, but I was also a train wreck. I literally sort of fell apart, not knowing who I was anymore. I learned a hell of a lot of things that I never would have learned otherwise. I learned about abundance through scarcity. You know, I learned about inherent respect from being with people that I never would have chosen to hang out with. You know, I learned a great, great, great deal. I wouldn't give anything for that time. I hope I never have to live through it again because it was hard, but it was useful. So thank God I didn't have $1 million in the bank. You know, I mean, it would have been a mess. So when we look back at our lives, I feel that we can often see how we've been taken care of and provided for, even when it doesn't seem like that's the case. So the new teachings on manifestations are about being the glass that is always in reception and consequently is always an overflow in order to be able to share.
That's beautiful. A couple of years ago, I received guidance and I heard, this is going to be your year to really dive into and to learn to receive. And I thought, amazing, it's finally time that I'm going to receive after all the work that I've done, after all these things, and grateful for all those experiences, but I'm moving into a different epoch. How wonderful. And Paul, I have to tell you, that was one of the toughest initiations to learn how to receive that I've been through, because it really had me look at identity and how I controlled siphon of energy and danced with what was showing up, with the potentiality of what was showing up. How do you navigate through it, and how do you help your clients that you work with to open up and be a vessel for more receptivity?
I mean, everybody's different. So I work with people differently. And when I work one-on-one, I'm working at two levels. I'm working psychically, which means I could tune into you and perhaps see how the pattern emerged or when in your life it emerged. And, you know, because I'm hearing you, you're telling me, or an aspect of you is telling me. The guides will say, ask him what happened when he was 16. And, you know, 16 years old was the year you couldn't afford the prom tickets and everybody laughed at you and the girl said no. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of stuff. You go, okay, there's that stuff. And then, when I'm channeling, the guides are teachers. I mean, I don't think the guides care about us getting better jobs. The idea of a better job generally means either it's more money or there's more esteem attached to it. There's nothing wrong with those things. So when I speak with somebody, I'm just tuning into them and what they need. What the guides talk about receptivity, they begin to address this in their third book. It was called The Book of Knowing and Worth. And it's one of my favorite books. It's a very simple book in a lot of ways. It was very fluid and was the first one, I think, where large portions of it were dictated in a public venue. It was mostly done at Esalen, if I recall. But they say that we're always ordering off of the menu of what we think we are allowed to have. And it doesn't occur to us to order what's not on the menu. So for example, if you don't go to the steakhouse, and ask for the vegetarian special necessarily. It's probably not on the menu. You don't go to the sushi place asking for the lasagna. So we're always getting what we expect. And that was sort of a shocking thing for me to hear, that we're getting what we expect. So they say we have these frames, and the purpose of a frame is to fill itself. So the guides call this the mudra of creation. They say we're always calling things into being 24/7. This is what we do, calling things into being, but we're calling them in through the frame that we hold. So if my frame is nobody's going to love me until I lose 50 pounds, or nobody's going to take me seriously until I've published a book, or whatever it might be, I'm calling in the evidence of that. So we tend to then pat ourselves in the back when we're not taken seriously, or we don't get the date, or our belief that people stink is confirmed by our experience. And that is the idea of sort of changing the dial of the station we're playing, or moving beyond those very restrictive beliefs, which are, they come in two ways: from our prior experience, how we're raised in our cultures and all those things. And I think also through the collective, what we inherit culturally. You're supposed to look like this, have this kind of career, all that crap. Mm-hmm. So, to move beyond that, I understand it is to begin to reclaim the true self, or the inherent divine that knows who he is, knows what she is, knows how it serves. The true self knows, the small self thinks. The true self, I understand, doesn't believe it's not worthy, because why would it? And the true self, I also understand, knows itself to be in union with source, which the personality self doesn't, and will often outright deny. And I believe it's because, if I understand the teaching correctly, that, the small self kind of has been entrained in the energy of fear. The guides have said, or maybe I said this, I don't remember who said it, but it's kind of like we show up in the pool that somebody peed in already. You know what I mean? And we don't know the difference. So there's all this fear there, and we go, okay, there's fear, and fear's my friend or my teacher. And we put it in our back pocket, and we walk around with it, attracting more and more and more of the same. And the guides have said since the beginning, the action of fear is to claim more fear. So when you start aligning to the true self that doesn't operate in fear, and you stop choosing in fear, you start claiming a very different experience. And I believe also what we can be receptive to changes, because I do believe that our inherent worth isn't necessarily based in the personality structure, but in a higher awareness of ourselves and others.
That's beautiful, Paul. Thank you for all that awareness that came along with that. As we get into this place of manifestation and being in receptivity, one of the conundrums is like, how do we be in that state of receptivity, in that present moment, and the opening of receiving, but plan also for the future of what we want to create?
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, I may have to go to them. And if I do go to them, forgive me, I've been like working all day. So this is I'm already a little sort of tapped out psychically. So ask the question again, please.
So how do we be present in receptivity and plan for the future at the same time?
Well, I think this is what the guides talk about when they talk about prudence. So, if I live in a cold climate and I have a fireplace and there's trees around, I might want to have some firewood to plan for the winter. That's prudence.
Mm.
To say, well, God's going to provide me the heat when you've got the axe and the trees and the fireplace, we still have to do our part for this. So I am all for being planful, which means have a general sense of an awareness of what's required of me. But I have to say, I've been taught this so much in the last 10 months to be willing to throw the entire plan out the window, all of it, everything. And I've been doing that in the last 10 months out of sheer necessity, because the life that I had planned in Manhattan didn't happen. I was in Costa Rica when Manhattan shut down. I didn't get to go home. I ended up on Maui, and that's where I've stayed. Much to my amazement, the last place I ever expected to be, I went to Hawaii once on a bad blind date about 6 years ago, and I swore I would never come back, ever, ever, ever. And this is where I landed, and now it's my home. But it's my home because I said yes to the unknown, the unpredicted, the unplanned for. And I became willing to say yes to what I hadn't intended through my sense of safety. I had just rented an apartment in the city. I've never spent a night in it. The apartment's been there. Somebody else I know is staying in there. I'm going to be shipping my belongings in time. But yeah, everything that I thought should be suddenly wasn't. And I'm finding great liberation in this. And I'm fortunate that I'm able to. I'm fortunate that I'm able to work wherever I am. And there are certain things that make it easier. But I also know that I'm somebody, and this is an example about planning ahead. I was an academic for 25 years. I taught at NYU, and I ran a graduate program at Goddard in Vermont for maybe 18 of those years. I figured I'd die in those jobs. I'd be the last one to turn out the lights. I'd been there for so long. I was like a fixture. And about 6 years ago, it became time to leave. And I didn't want to leave because I was scared. You don't give up at my age, you don't give up your retirement, and you don't give up your benefits, and you don't to do channeling, but I did. And it's been a much better life for me. But I was so used to the way things should be that I didn't trust spirit of the universe to support me in a way that I hadn't pre-approved of. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, and talking about the pre-approving, there's something that you go deeper into, which is also agreement and co-resonance.
Yeah.
So tell us more about that.
Well, I got into that a little bit already, but agreement, it goes back to this idea that we're in agreement with everything that we see. It's not that we approve of it. It means that I agree that it's there. So we all look out at the same sky and go, okay, that's a sky. You can say it's a pretty sky, or it's a polluted sky, or it's an ugly sky, depending on your opinion, which is subjective. But we're in agreement, which is accord with everything we see. Now, when the guides talk about accord, they go ACCORD or ACHORD, as if on a piano. And what they're talking about is co-resonance or vibration. So at that level, we're always calling to ourselves what we're in resonance with. Now, I think one of the challenges is, and one of the, I think, apt criticisms of some of the New Age is that it becomes about a kind of selfishness or narcissism, at times, which is, I created this, and why did I create that? And I broke my toe. Why did I break my toe? Well, you weren't looking where you were going. I heard somebody else say that once. I thought it was a great answer,
Yeah.
What we forget about is that we're operating also as a collective, and collective agreement is to things like, I don't know, government and religion and, economic structures, all of these things, a monetary system, all of these things are born through the collective. We inherit them, but we're born into them and go, okay, well, this has been there, so it should always be there. The guys that I work with said, that the fingerprint of everybody who's ever gone to a bank is in every bank you've ever walked into, which is the consciousness that was informed the institution through its use. And they say that goes back to like the first hunter that ever dropped his purse off for somebody else to hold while he went off into the woods, So the idea of co-resonance at a collective level is what the guides are really speaking to now. because they say that, and they've always said they don't write self-help books. That's not what they do. But they do say when you lift to this level that they call the upper room, which is simply a higher level of agreement, you move into accord with what expresses there. And if you're already up here, you're calling to you that which exists in like accord. So the guides have said, the view from the basement window is very different than the view on the 20th floor. And you go up to the 20th floor, it's a very different view, and what you call to yourself there is radically different. When they teach to the collective, they're actually saying that from the 20th floor, you can lift what you encounter to you, not through effort, but through co-resonance. They say you become the doorway or the portal to the upper room, to what you encounter, because that's just basically entrainment. You play the higher note, and what's lower will lift to it. You understand? And that's what they're teaching now, and specifically in the last book, Alchemy, the one that just came out.
That's beautiful. I love the way you describe that. And for me, I was going to ask about dipping into the lower realms.
Sure.
Like getting into the upper room, and then there's like this wave that goes back and forth. But what we're really doing is what you're saying is we're attuning those things of the lower vibration up to what we have access to now.
Well, it depends, I think. So I get knocked downstairs all the time.
Yeah.
And that's because I have an investment in fear. And finally, the guides have been saying this forever, but I finally get it. Everything must be re-seen as opportunity. It doesn't mean somebody didn't hurt you or treat you badly. It doesn't mean that you were responsible for the car accident. None of that crap, It's not blame the victim stuff, but if anything can be seen as opportunity, that means you can work with it. So when I go back downstairs, as it were, into my fear or my shame or my anger or my sense of self-righteousness, the guides say self-righteousness is always the small self, and I found that to be true. It shows me where the work is needed. That's all. It's where I need to, the button gets pushed, you get to work on the button. That's not original. So that's how I experience it. Now, the idea of going back down to the negativity in order to address it, I don't know if it really works that way, because I don't think you can transform it from that level. I think you can be at the higher and lift it. And in order to lift it, the guides say you have to perceive the inherent divine in it. So they just say God is all things or it's nothing at all. You really can't have it both ways. So here's the example. It's in an earlier book. The guide said, imagine you walk into a cave, and in that cave is the one person you never want to see again as long as you live. Now your job is to walk that person out of the cave. They say, because you put that person in the darkness and they called you to that darkness that you put them in. So to let them out of the cave isn't to say, oh, it was okay that you ruined my life. It's okay that you broke my heart. It's okay. It's to say, I don't have to be on the hook for this anymore myself. That's the real teaching of forgiveness. So that's how I look at some of this stuff. I don't know if I answered everything that you asked, because I'm throwing different examples at you, but there you go.
You've answered it beautifully. And it reminds me of a quote that I heard from you during a talk that you did, and it's what you condemn condemns you.
Yeah, it's a real easy teaching. They say what you damn damns you back. And that's the whole idea, that if I want to go down there and start blaming, I'm an energetic alignment with the very, very thing that I'm condemning. That's all. And doesn't change that way. But the guides also say what you bless blesses you in return. And I understand a blessing is a perception of the presence of the divine. Blessing your food, for example, which I always forget to do, and I think it's probably a great thing to do, but blessing the food is the presence of the divine in what you eat. It's not some rote set of words, that's how I perceive it. So what you bless blesses you back. And that's again, the teaching of vibrational accord. It's the same thing.
Beautiful. And again, you mentioned forgiveness and the aspects of that. It's what is the way that the council and that your understanding of the council sharing of forgiveness is that is the transition from a state of lower vibration that allows us to get into the upper room.
I'm not following counsel. I mean, what's the
What does the council say about it? What's the
Oh, you
teaching?
mean, do you mean my guides? Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
call themselves a council. Other people, I think, use that term, but no,
Okay.
not
Yes,
the
yes.
guides. It's fine. What do they say about forgiveness? It's a requirement. Basically, it's a requirement, is what I get. It's not a new teaching. I mean, it's all over the New Testament, and I wasn't raised with that stuff at all. But it's the idea of forgiveness isn't about letting somebody else off the hook, which is, I think, why people get so upset around that idea. I'm not going to forgive the person who hurt me so badly. I mean, I think, the guides say you can forgive someone, you don't have to have dinner with them. But forgiveness is about releasing them, and so that you can move beyond it. That's really, it's in some ways, it's a selfish act. But if I read this correctly, let me go to them. We would like to answer. They're saying we would like to answer this. The teaching of forgiveness is essential. He is doing his best. He is doing his best. We will try a little harder. We will try a little harder to deny anybody. To deny the divine in anybody is to deny the divine in yourself. If you're unforgiving. If you are unforgiving, you're denying the inherent divine. You are denying the inherent divine in the one you see. In the one you see, you may choose this. You may choose this, but it puts them in darkness. But it puts them in darkness and calls them darkness and calls you to the same darkness. Who you put in darkness, who you put in darkness, what you put in darkness, what you put in darkness, indeed calls you darkness, indeed calls you to the darkness. The true self as you. The true self as you is in fact a liberator, is in fact a liberator of all fear, a liberator of all fear and all condemnation and all condemnation. Now to know who you are, indeed in a higher way, indeed in a higher way, as well, is to know who another is as well. The divine has come in all. The divine has come in all, or in no one, or in no one. To deny the divine self. To deny the divine in yourself, and in all things, is to deny the divine in all things. To put somebody in shadow, aligns you to shadow, aligns you to shadow. You may have that in your self-righteousness. You may have that in your self-righteousness, a belief that you may be right, a belief that you may be right, but you do so at a penalty. But you do so at a penalty. Perhaps you will learn a lesson there. Perhaps you will learn a lesson there, but there is far more to learn. But there is far more to learn through the liberation that comes from the liberation that comes through knowing who another is, through knowing who another is beyond their behavior or belief in them, or your belief in them and the claim that you make for them, and the claim that you may make for them, which is the inherent divine, is as them as well as me, is as them as well as me, period. We're saying period.
Beautiful. Ah, that's so wonderful, Paul. I had an experience quite a few years ago where I was taken into a lucid dream. As a little boy, I was being sexually assaulted by someone who was to be my teacher. And it was a horrific dream, and I was crying, and I was feeling everything that was happening to this being. And so I went in to do a shamanic retrieval by myself. It's like, okay, come with me, we're reintegrate. And the little boy looks at me as I'm standing there going through this initiation, if you will. Looks at me, I can't come with you. It's like, why not? Because I can't come without him. And he walks up to the perpetrator. The perpetrator drops to his knees, realizing what he'd done. The little boy touches him in his third eye, and they both integrate into my being. What a beautiful example of what was just described in the forgiveness process, and illustrated how the fullness of being the perpetrator and the victim, the innocence and the darkness, and integrating that into me, set something free from my being through that experience. It was amazing.
It's a great story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful example of what's possible through that. Paul, I want to share your special offer with everybody on the call. Paul's teaching about forgiveness and manifestation. There's a live course coming up, and I want you all to take advantage of it. April, if you would, and she already has. April has put the link in the chat box. So click on the chat box, and it'll open up there. And I'm going to share my screen as well. Paul, if you want to follow along from the screen here, let me know if you can see it. And let me get this out of the way so that we can have more access to the course. So Again, y'all, it's a $127 course. There's a 2 payment option on it, on forgiveness and manifestation. And Paul, we start with the forgiveness component of it.
Yeah, this is the Wednesday evening live streams. It's done Eastern time, 8 p.m., although you can join us from anywhere in the world. Now, the guides give me the title of the course, but the teaching is all the guides. So in any given class, they're usually lecturing for 30 to 40 minutes on a subject and then taking your questions as they relate to the teachings, hopefully, but they also take questions on people's personal lives. So they build these classes. So there's actually a kind of an amazing sequence to them. I never know what they're going to be because I just show up with the title and hope that I can hear okay. I mean, that's my job. So that's forgiveness. And we send the recordings in 24 hours and the transcripts as well. For those of you who can't abide the whispering and repeating, the transcripts are helpful for that. And the second one is manifestation. This was a really good workshop. This was 2 hours. I think it's a 10-hour course. So I think we met 5 days for 2 hours each. In most days, they were delivering 2 lectures and taking questions from people on the subject. And they are teaching about manifestation in a somewhat different way. They're talking about becoming the conduit for expression. They say that as they talk about matter, things, stuff, the world, the guides say there is one note being sung in the entire universe, one tone that's actually in manifestation, or they use the word articulation as all things. So it's really about aligning to that level of vibration to be able to receive. And I do believe some of what they're talking about is receiving, beyond prior expectation, or how it should come or what it should look like, to be wonderfully surprised.
Amazing. So these are full-on experiences, and again, the attunements that come through it are remarkable. And y'all get to benefit from a Facebook group. There's discussion boards inside the course. Again, you'll get full transcripts. There's a private member area for you as well. All that's included here on the sales page. And again, it's offered for $127 with a 2 payment option. And Paul, I know your webinars, since you haven't been traveling as much as you typically had prior to COVID, they have been just blowing up with people showing up from all over the world and teachings.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's happened, maybe this is just a time, I don't know, where people are more available to this, but it's also, when I was traveling a lot and I had to travel with people and, equipment and, we had to rent spaces and all those things. I mean, it was pricey to do. And this is generally much more affordable for people. And I love doing them. And I don't have to get on an airplane because right now it's not the best thing to do. So I'm happy about that. And the attendance has been quite something to watch.
Well, and for me, it just sings to me on how we're becoming more open as a collective to not keeping this in such an esoteric realm, that we're normalizing this conversation, that it's getting out into a more mainstream, acceptable form of attunement and intelligence that we're ready to really interact with and grow with.
It seems that way, when people ask questions during the live streams, I'm always surprised when they say things like, well, I'm a judge and, this is my job. And, we had a nurse on yesterday it was really quite touching to hear her and what she's going through. But it's people are people, I mean, I was part of the reason I think that I was published, which was, I mean, the first book was channeled. I had a publisher right away. It was on the shelves. The guide said, don't haggle. But the publisher was pleased for some reason because I came from a background that he found unlikely. But which just meant I was a college teacher, I've been to, it was all that stuff. I don't think it makes much difference. But I do think that when somebody like me, who comes from, in some ways, a little bit of a traditional background, says this is real, it's part of my experience, it gives permission for other people. And I think that's true for everybody. We can sort of come out of the closet and say who we are and treat each other kindly, I hope, in that process.
and find the resonance of community in the process as well, which is so
Mhm.
beautiful. And so it's just so satiating on so many levels.
Mhm.
So wonderful. Y'all take advantage of the course. Again, it's $127. There's a 2 payment option on it. The first course, I believe, starts February 10th, if I read that correctly. You'll have live access and the recordings if you happen to miss something. So again, that's there. All Paul, take advantage of it. It's going to be amazing. And the link again is in the chat box. If you click on that, you'll be able to get to the special offer. It's a super easy checkout process, and enjoy that offer. Paul, I want to take a few questions from the audience and open up to people raising their hands. But before we
Right.
do, I wanted to ask you if you can share some of the latest attunements that the guides are bringing in.
Well, the attunements build one upon the next. The ones that they're working with now, the newer ones, have their basis in the prior ones. So it's kind of like jumping to the later in the book before you've had the introduction of the setup. But the two that are the most powerful that they've been working with is the claim, "Behold, I make all things new," which they say is claimed by the true self. So you go to the upper room, and there's a very simple claim there: "I am in the upper room." And from that place, you can claim, "Behold, I make all things new." Or the other one is, "God is, God is, God is." They say that the claim "God is a statement of truth, and it actually refutes the denial of the divine or fear, which is, they say, the only real problem we're facing. So to go to those attunements without the prior ones, I can attune. We can just do an attunement for everybody if you want, but it's a little lengthy, and perhaps we want to go to the questions first, and then if there's time, we can do an attunement. It's up to you.
Let's do the attunement and then we'll go to the questions. Oh, I would be remiss if we didn't do that. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. Sit back, please. They're saying, "Sit back, please. Close your eyes. We will take them through this. We will take them through this if we are allowed. If we are allowed, you may say this after us. You may say this after us. I know who I am in truth.
I know who I am in truth.
I know what I am in truth.
I know what I am in truth.
I know how I serve in truth.
I know how I serve in truth.
I am free. I am free. I am free." Now, these claims are made by the true self, who knows who he is, who knows who he is as of God, knows what she is, knows what she is as of God, and how he serves, and how he serves, it serves, she serves as of God, as of God. The claim, "I am free, I'm free, I'm free." The claim, "I am free, I am free, I am free," again invoked by the true self, again invoked by the true self, who is always free, who is not even bound by time, who is not even bound by time or your idea of time, or your idea of time, which is in limitation, which is in limitation. From this place, the upper room, you may claim all things, you may claim all things. You may say this if you wish. You may say this if you wish. I am in the upper room. I know myself in the upper room. I am free in the upper room.
Free.
Now, saying, now you may say this if you wish. I have come, I have come, I have come. They're saying this is the claim of the true self in manifestation. In manifestation, the divine is who has come. The divine as you has come, who is expressed in the upper room, who is expressed in the upper room. And now these claims, see the world before you. See the world before you. What you think a world is, or what you think a world is. See the life you have lived before you. See the life you have lived before you. What you think your life has been, or what you think your life has been. And allow the divine as you, and allow the divine as you to invoke this claim, It is always true at this level. It is always true at this level. You may say these words if you wish. You may say these words if you wish. So, "Behold, I make all things new.
Behold, them all things.
God is, God is, God is." And they're saying, feel this, yes? If you feel the expansion, just acknowledge it. This is the beginning of the process. This is the beginning of a big process. You may work with this if you wish. You may work with this if you wish, but you are soliciting change. But you are soliciting change. You are invoking change. You are invoking change. You want to change. And your willingness to change through this language, which is indeed attuned in vibration, to support your recognition of it, period. And you're saying period.
Wow.
Okay.
Paul, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I know your time. I could feel that expansion and dropping in. That's powerful. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any of y'all, there'll be a replay of this, so you can come back and experience this again. We'll put that a little bit later. And again, more of this, and again, the teachings in this will offer the links there. We'll go into that in a little bit. And Paul, we promised a little bit of Q&A, so let's go to the first question. Let's go to Penny. If you can unmute yourself, that would be wonderful.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. What is your question for Paul?
I have been finding myself, when my intention is to stay uplifted and in love, the challenge of my interactions with other people. And it just can be frustrating to feel myself getting pulled out of that place. So what is something that I can do?
Okay, I'm going to tune into you personally, if that's okay, and see what
All
this
right.
is about for you.
Okay.
There's a little part of you that comes through as if to say, I have to be right. And that's a claim that seems to be made in fear, like it's a fear of not being right. So what that ends up doing for you, because I get actually kind of rigid and frightened around this. So let's see what the answer is. Some of it's simply allowing other people to be who they are, allowing yourself to have the responses you have, and not dictating how others should be. And this is the key, and this is the key for people. Forgive other people for not being who you want them to be. Then you can lift and allow them to be as they are, and allow them to be as they are. You people want things from you. I'm hearing you think people want things from you, but some of this is projection, but some of this is projection, and all of it can be released, and all of it can be released if indeed you're willing. They're saying if indeed you are willing, period. That's what I'm hearing, Penny. Hope that helps.
All right, thanks for calling in, Penny.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to our next caller. Is it Kay Ann?
Yes, that's me.
Hi,
hello.
Welcome. What is your question for Paul?
Well, in that, what you just did for Penny was very much what I guess I was thinking too. So, the only other thing I can ask Paul is, on top of what Penny just asked, the world is a place where it's pulling me. I get aggravated. Let's put it this way. But I get aggravated that people don't realize that evil exists. So then I get pulled down, and I say that because I have an awful lot of my family members in the military and in intelligence. And there's very, very, very real and dark things happening that they're assigned to eradicate, that I think people want to love away, and it confounds me. And I get stuck there.
Well, they're pointing to you, so I'm gonna actually tune into you personally before going to the larger question.
Okay.
What I actually hear when I tune into you, whether it's true or not, I hear you want to see people indicted. You have an investment in vengeance in this. And I hear, and there's a reason for this. You believe in right and wrong. You believe in right and wrong, but that also pulls you into duality. But that also pulls you into duality and left and right, and good and evil, and good and evil, and high and low, and high and low. We would like to understand one thing. We would like you to understand one thing. Everybody's kind of complex. Everybody is accountable to their acts. Every one of you is. Every one of you is. You know this is karma. You know this is karma. It is a law, and it is a law. Now, good and evil. Now, good and evil is a sense of right and wrong, is a sense of right and wrong, and is both moral, and is based in moral conjecture. And based in moral conjecture, we would speak to it differently. We would speak to it differently. Certainly not loving it away. Certainly not loving it away, but comprehending scale. But comprehending scale. Now, every tone, every note sung is in resonance, with one level or another, with one level or another. To look at a scale is a series of notes, high and low, that can be understood and heard, that can be understood. We'll give you a better picture. We'll give you a better picture of what you call evil, of what you call evil. We would call evil the intentional denial, the intentional denial of the divine. That's the key. Now, the one thing that does that, and the only thing is fear, and the only thing is fear. Now, fear is a lie. And here is the interesting part. Fear is also of God. Fear is also of God. It must be, because all things must be of God, because all things must be of God, but it denies it. Your opportunity is realized on, is to realize the divine. Realize means know. Where it has been dismissed, or denied. To claim God in the darkness. To claim God in the darkness refutes the darkness, lifts a candle to it, become the light that illumines the darkness, Don't damn the darkness, it puts you in hell with it. And hell, if you want to know what it means, and hell, if you want to know what it means, is the belief in the absence of the divine, and God must be there as well. Because it cannot not be, because it cannot not be. The divine is all things. Will support you in this, and trust that other things will come, to illumine what needs to be illumined, That is the process you're all engaged in now. That is the process you are all engaging in now, period. They're saying period, tell her this. They're saying tell her this. So that was them. There's a book that they wrote about 5 years ago called The Book of Truth. And they pretty much said we're in a time where everything that's been buried is going to be coming to the surface. But they say this, and they say this often. It's not being brought to the surface to condemn, to make wrong, to blame. Everything has to be brought to the surface in order to be seen, because nothing gets healed unless it's seen. And they say for all of us, every one of us, what you bury in the basement is going to stink up the whole house. You know what I mean? So we all have our own work to do on this, because what we hold in ourselves, we see out pictured in everything. So I hope some of that was helpful, and I wish you the best.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Great question. One of my favorite books, and I love the title of it, is Buried Feelings Alive Never Die. And it's about the process of going in and, again, having it come alive again so we can be present with it for it to evolve. And so, again, such beautiful teaching and such resonant for me. Let's go to one more question. Natalie, let's get you to unmute, please. And Natalie, while you're coming on, I want to remind everybody, the special offer link is in the chat box. The live course is 10 hours for one course, just amazing content on the live course coming up also. And again, you have a 2 payment option on that $127 as well. And the teachings from Paul and the resonance and the truth that comes out. For me, they're liberators, and they're also attunements into a resonance of peace, of that knowing. And when you're in that trust of that knowing, and in the knowing of the knowing, what flows, what you have access to in that wave of this life that we get to live and experience, it's something I want to swim in more often. And so I invite you guys to that and take advantage of it. Natalie, if you would, let us know what your question is. What's your question for Paul?
Hi, guys. Thank you very much for who you are and what you do. And thank you to guides. And my question, thank you to everybody. My question is, I had issue with my mother-in-law, and it was on my daughter's birthday, And it was very painful for me. I didn't want to be right. I didn't think about it. But she said something. She wanted to manipulate and make me wrong. And for me, it is big issue when people tell me what to do, because I don't feel that I have freedom to be who I am. So how to let it go and forget and forgive and forget.
Okay, I'm not sure what the question is.
What's your question, Natalie?
My question is how to forgive my
Okay.
mother-in-law.
I'm going to tune into you first, and I may ask for her name in a second once I go to
Yes.
you. You come through saying, I will not be made wrong. You're firm, I will not be made wrong. And then you look over to her to see what she's going to do, and you become frightened of her. So can I have her name, please?
Vega.
Vega?
Vega.
Let me see if I can get her.
Vega. F.
I got her. She's going, ha, 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 ha. She enjoyed it. She had a good time at your expense. She's coming through like a got her. How about that? Proud of herself. In other words, what I'm getting is you took the bait. You took the bait and you ran with it. So let me see how you might be able to let go of this. This is what I hear. I hear, what if she doesn't know what she's talking about?
Exactly.
Now I get a jaw drop. Whenever I get a jaw drop, that's like the aha moment, like she doesn't know what she's talking about. Then it doesn't matter.
Right.
Then it just doesn't matter. All of the things that we get so upset about, we're investing with enormous meaning. You look like you want to say something, yes?
Yes, thank you very much. I have two small questions. How to raise myself to upper room, and I had a lot of money in my life. I made it, and I was lucky. And now I don't work. So I would like to receive, to only spend on learning, to take seminars.
Let me just ask to see what you might need here quickly.
Thank you.
I need to let myself learn in any way that I can learn. Your life is your teacher. Your life is your teacher, and the best teacher you will ever have. In my courses, you don't have to spend your money on courses unless you wish to. Unless you wish to, let the day be your teacher. Let the day be your teacher. You'll learn well. You will learn well. Period. I'm saying period. Okay.
Natalie, blessings
Thank
to you. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you to guides.
Oh, I muted you. I apologize. But thank you for calling in, Natalie. And good luck with your mother. Not good luck, but now you know. Jaw drop. Amazing. Y'all, again, the course with Paul, the special offer link is in the chat box. Click on that. Get access to it. The live course starts February 10th. You have the recordings of the forgiveness or the manifestation course that's in there, as well to dive into. And again, I highly, highly recommend it. And Paul, with that, I know you've been channeling all day. Thank you for bringing the guides in today. Thank you for your presence. It's always just so remarkable. And I always feel my calls typically go about 90 minutes. I feel so satiated in an hour and want to leave space for us to attune to what's coming through. And also be in gratitude and respect for the energy that you put into the call. So it's with that I want to thank you so much for being on the show and for kicking us off in such a beautiful and amazing and exciting way.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
All right, have a good evening. And everybody on the call, thank you all so much. Tune in tomorrow for second live call of the season. And we're just going to continue the momentum and build upon the energy that was shared here. Come back and listen to the replay, to the attunements that were coming in, that Paul shared also. And the replay link will be in the email that we're sending out to you, so that you know where to find all the information. And again, it's with that I'm grateful to each and every one of you. I look forward to seeing you on the next call. And I bow to each and every one of you and namaste. Have a great evening. Thanks, Paul.